Okay. We have got Jamie in the house and quite a few other people. Jamie, you want to load your presentation so long? I'm sitting here with my backup glasses, so excuse me for the blue blocks, but these are my work at the night glasses. But it really does help if you keep the blue light away. But Jamie, can you upload so long? And then we have your slide. Yeah. If you make it a slide presentation. There we go. That bottom thing. Yeah. Where it looks like a TV. Let's get that going. There we go. There we go. I'm very keen on this presentation. I have to say, this is something that I've tried to understand for so many times, and I think we finally cracked it. So, and I think the implications are wide. It's not just something that we're looking at in one province, although this is a study like that. But I don't want to start talking if I'm going to talk to myself. Who else is here in the room that can say hello? It's always nice to just hear the interests of people. Let's see. There's the person. Hello. That's nice. Who else do we have? I'm going to ask, who else do we have that's not from GTAC? Let's start with that. Can we ask people that aren't from GTAC to put on their screens? It's just for a moment. There's this person, Tabo. Are you a guest, I see? Great. There we go. Ah, hello. Nice to hear that people are logging in. Tabo, from where are you logging in? Tabo Marala.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. From the Eastern Cape Provincial Treasury.
Great.
Eastern Cape Provincial Treasury. Thank you, Ronette. All right.
Okie dokes. Ntiki is also here. Where are you from, Ntiki?
Afternoon, Ronette and everyone. I'm also from the Eastern Cape Provincial Treasury.
Ah, so we've got a good Eastern Cape contingent here today. Lovely. Oh, yes, of course. Excuse me. Sorry. Apologies. I'm going to ask Andiswa, won't you introduce yourself quickly? Let's get a sense.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm also from the Eastern Cape Provincial Treasury.
Good. What a lovely contingent. Thank you very much. Welcome, everybody. Let's go down to Janine and then Yonwaba. Let's hear, where are you from? Let's get this all understood.
I'm from a National Treasury Legislation Division. I'm just very interested from a personal perspective. My husband's from Matatiele in the Eastern Cape, and I'm extremely familiar of the horrendous situation with road maintenance and repairs in that province. So
okay.
I'm very interested to hear.
Welcome. Any reason and all reasons are welcome, you know. So let's hear people here. Yonwaba, Mfengwana.
Hi everyone. I'm from the National Treasury in capacity building for municipalities. I'm just interested in this topic.
Fabulous. Let me say that I share your interests in this topic. It's been a topic that has been on my radar as a costing, the focus of costing that we've been doing for the past 6-7 years in GTAC. And it's been really tough to get to the bottom of this topic. It's been really not so easy to actually get to the data that we need to understand what the data is saying to us. So finally, we've got a crack through, I think, or a breakthrough, as one should say, a crack in the firmament, and here we are. We're going to start in about 2 minutes, I'd say. Let's just give a few people more time to log in. It's a long weekend, school holidays, but we have got a regular Friday schedule. You know, you can stop at the side of the road and listen. Find a cool tree if you're driving somewhere. Hopefully you're driving on an already upgraded road and not having to deal with the conditions that we're going to be talking about here today. Let me invite, who else do we have that is not a GTAC person yet? Can I hear anybody else that's not from GTAC? It's just nice to know that we're reaching a wide audience, and we're going to be inviting all the provinces into all of these seminars. And as we've said, it will be a weekly seminar every Friday. There's a seminar on an interesting topic. We've got lists up to October. And we're happy to share this information. We're happy to share the insights, and happy to be open to questions. And I think you will find, as we go into these seminars, to be able to answer questions, you know, for everybody. So it's lovely that people are joining us. I see there's about 30 people in the room already, and it's a little bit after 2, and I think we should be ready to start. Let me get going. So, welcome again to everybody. I really appreciate people being here. It's the start of a long weekend, but you are focused on understanding an aspect of the public sector in a better way. Let me start off by saying that we're very fortunate to have Jamie de Jager here this afternoon, and to have been able to work with Jamie. He's recently joined what is known as the Public Expenditure and Policy Analysis team. And he comes with a wealth of experience. And Jamie is one of those unique individuals that you will find in the public sector that I really believe is part of the reason that we can go forward. Jamie has enormous interest in making the public sector work, and he has a deep understanding of infrastructure matters and is an engineer himself. So to have that combination of somebody who's a public sector interest, an infrastructure specialist. He's worked on the IDIP matters, on the IDMS matters, on the MISA for the municipalities recently. And the important component that we're also taking here with Jamie is that he has an interest to capacitate people. Jamie is a person that takes the time and effort to connect with people, to convey his information, and to empower people to do and work with that information themselves. And I hope that you've heard the 3 rare combinations, which in combination makes it even more rare. So very fortunate to find Jamie here in the public sector. And we ask him to look in a project with the Eastern Cape Treasury into specifically assisting people to understand costs around the upgrading from gravel roads to surface roads. And it's not the first time or even the second time. It is the 3rd time that we were trying to understand costs around road construction, provincial roads specifically. And Jamie will also explain this afternoon why it was so difficult for us. Why is that such a tough nut to crack? But I think finally we've got it. Finally, we understand, with the help of the Eastern Cape officials and people in the Public Works and Transport, Roads and Transport Department in the Eastern Cape. And what is beautiful about this project is that this project now lies at the basis of a bigger project across the whole country. Now that we understand how this process works, what to look for, what to understand, we have been able to now design a project that will allow us to understand and pull in costs across the country. But I'm going to stop talking because the real expert in this room now is Jamie. Jamie, you're going to introduce the group of people that and the people that's worked with you, but I want to move across to say to Jamie, please take the floor. Just put on your camera for a second so people can see that live in the Eastern Cape, that is fortunate enough to live in the beautiful province, in beautiful East London, and connects with us virtually. This is something that we've now learned to do in the process of this COVID situation. Jamie, welcome very much. I'm going to go away and the floor is yours in the Eastern Cape. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, thank you very much, Renette, for the kind words as well. And I'm so, I'm grateful and thank you to all the Provincial Treasury people that are with us. They were part of the team that was part of the spending review, so it's great to have them with us. I'm going to climb in to the presentation, and I think afterwards we'll have some discussion and comments. I think the first thing about roads, as Renette in her introduction, is there's lots of challenges. There's lots of purists out of there that say, oh, it's impossible to do it because roads are so different, and everything about a road is every road is unique, and they're obviously quite correct. So I think the whole principle is what were we trying to achieve in the spending review? With the time available and information available, we actually decided we'll go at much more of a sort of a medium to high level, enough for us to make some calls around which is better and which is more efficient and which is more effective with public spending between upgrading of gravel roads to tar roads, whether we should do it in-house or outsource it. So all roads are unique. It's technical. You rely on a lot of historical data. You can't do it when a project's halfway through. You have to sort of get towards the latter half of a project to get all the information available when you can do it. It's also very easy to come to incorrect conclusions. You need experience, you need judgment to actually sit down and say, oh, well, that is part of this, maybe take that off, we can't use this, we can use that, etc. Just using a 2-variable metric, rand per kilometer, is also extremely misleading. And you'll see in this spending review, we did it at a high level just so that we could sit down and look at the efficiencies, but it can be very misleading. I think the number of variables on each road, they can overpower the result. So right from the beginning, we have to say, it's not easy to do roads. And everyone, all the purists will say it's impossible. But anyway, we've tried and we'll show you how we did it. When you're looking at all the different variations that come into any design or any construction of a road, there's so many variables. The road class and type, paved road versus gravel roads, the traffic volumes and the design specs for different traffic volumes are all different. Rainfall and climatic conditions during construction and even afterwards, they affect the design criteria. Urban roads and rural roads, volumes, even when you're using a major access road, you know, there are lots of things about how do you do traffic control. When like on this one, to tar, the existing road condition can be so different. If the existing road is so poor, sort of even beyond repair, it costs a hell of a lot more than if it was a sort of a reasonably kept road. The topography and the underlying geology has a huge impact. In this case here also, if it was just taking an existing road with no vertical or horizontal alignment changes, it's a lot cheaper than if you have got a lot more cut to fill, etc., having to put more structures in place. So there's lots and lots and lots of variables. Project timeframes, when the road was built, the site supervision, the services, cost of materials. When you've got sub-base conditions and you have to use cement in the sub-bases, in some cases you don't. How many layers of base and sub-base levels do you do? So there's so many different variables. But anyway, what we did, and I'll show you our approach, and then we can make a call on it. How did we do it? When we started it, we first sat down and said, okay, what's the problem? And the problem was, which is more efficient, doing in-house or outsourcing on upgrading from gravel to tar roads. We then prepared a log frame and did some process maps, and a key issue was identifying the outputs and the activities and the inputs. We then went into accessing data. In the access of data, the main data sources was the BAS, and I'll show you how we use the BAS and the Percel. But key, you cannot do this if you don't get core information from the Department of Transport. The first thing that the Department of Transport had to do was give us a list of those projects that we could compare that were done in-house and outsourced on gravel roads to tar roads. And obviously there's not that many. I think in the whole country there's less than 200 projects when I looked on the National Department of Transport. Now the Eastern Cape, they gave us I think 20 or so. So 10% of the roads about in the country are being done by the Eastern Cape from gravel to tar. The projects, the information that we asked for is key, is the scope of the work, the project costs, when they were constructed, what the fleets, what did they use on the fleet. They also gave us an indication of the staff, how much staff they used on the projects when it was in-house and outsourced. And one of the key things they gave us on the outsourced project was the bill of quantities, the completed works bill of quantities. And that bill of quantities, I'll show you later, is very, very important for us to actually measure all the input costs to what was actually delivered on the output. We then obviously did the data analysis and review, then report writing and submission. When we did the data analysis on the in-house projects, they gave us a spreadsheet that looked like this. And on it, there's the name of the projects, the cost that they had, where the stage was. These are the IDMS stages, the number of kilometers and the scope of work. We then compared what they gave us on a spreadsheet on the in-house project with the BAS expenditure. So we could overlay the two together. The department gave us 7 projects. And from those 7, when we looked at it and we saw what we had on BAS, and we looked at the actual scope of works, etc., and where they were, we could only sit down and say only 3 were really suitable in this analysis. All of those 3 roads were interesting enough. They took more than 4 or 5 years to complete. And when you're getting roads with a sort of relatively small scope of works or outputs, taking 4 or 5 years, it is an indication around whether we're actually doing the things right on the in-house model or not. So I think one of the key things is we need to look at what type of projects that the department is actually implementing in-house, whether it be from gravel to tar or generally, and how they use their maintenance and their construction units within the department. When we did the BAS alignment, we obviously got all the projects, the 7 projects they gave us with all the totals. And then what we did is we actually pulled out the item lowest level. And on the item lowest level, we got a whole string of costs from the BAS. And if you have a look at any one of these costs, you can actually sit down and say, oh, if they were doing these things in-house, why were they having so many costs like this, showing that they actually even had to outsource a lot of the functions to external service providers, even though they're saying they're doing it in-house. So there you'll see the casual labors, there you'll see their own fuel service, fuel, oil and grease, security. So all the components of doing a project in-house, you can actually pick up from the BAS and the expenditure on each one. Looking at the BAS, and as I say, looking at the information that we were given by the Department of Transport, we did an elimination process, and we eventually came up with only 3 projects. Okay, so that was the process of elimination, of finding projects that we could compare with the outsourced. When you look at an individual project, you'll get something like this, and it was very helpful because you can actually see all the costs that came into as an in-house project for this one project. So we got this for every single one of the 7 projects. And as I say, and then each one we came through and we did it. Now you can see here rental and hiring of plant, even though they did it in-house, was a very big expense. And as soon as they do rental hiring, it comes up on BAS and you can see the expenditure attached to it. When you have a look down at the bottom here, and I just need to, when you have a look at the personnel costs, we had all the BAS expenditure here, but then at the bottom here, we had to add the personnel costs. And from the per cell, we then actually sat down and said, we got the costs of every single job position from per cell, with the salaries and the salary scales and how much it cost per annum, etc. And the department also gave us the typical task force for the in-house projects around what core competencies and skills that they could use on that one project. And they gave us this list here. We then prorated it. Now that means we were very conservative, because if a project was being done for 5 years, what we did is we sat down and said the year that they had the most work done on it, we took that as being the full staff complement. And if they were down to 80% production, we then sat down and said took 80% of the staff component. So we were actually conservative, and we gave the benefit of the doubt to the department, because I think in the department how they actually do the work is if it's a 5-year project and they've got that one construction team working on that, that team is there for the full 5 years. But we sat down and said, let's rather make it pro rata, because a long time period, it would have knocked the numbers really, really skew at the end of the day. The other component on in-house that you can't pick up from BAS is the plant and machinery, the yellow fleet. Okay, and how we did that is that we got from the department all the yellow fleet per project. And I must compliment the Department of Transport that they did have records of exactly which plant was being used on exactly which project. And I think in the future, if we can get that sort of information, it's very, very valuable for us to actually sit down and say, what are the real costs for the government to do a project like this on the in-house costs? So in summary, we could actually sit down from BAS, take all the expenditure that went into it, plus their own in-house staff complement and resources, and all the in-house plant and equipment. And I think then you can get a very good feeling around the total cost of a project, so that you can compare that as if you had to outsource it. All these costs would be comparison with a contractor, because a contractor would have its own plant and own staff and all its own fuel, etc. So then you're getting to a situation now that you can compare apples with apples on both sides. On the outsourced projects, we did exactly the same thing. We got their spreadsheet, we got where the stages were, we got the scope of work, and they gave us a sort of a high level scope of work. And from looking at it, and a lot of them had some large structures and some of them weren't 100% complete. So what we did is we cut from the 9 projects down to say these 4, we could actually then compare with what we had from the in-house projects being done in-house. I think all of the roads that we ended up taking, we found that the period of construction is a lot shorter than those that were done in-house. The outsourced projects, they were taking 2 years, and then you could see that there was a retention amount paid at the end of the time. So we found that the project duration for these number of kilometers was a lot shorter than those done in-house. When we asked for the information, we said we've got to have a look and see what's the scope of work, and we've got to break down the costs of every single component of the works that was done on the outsourced. And the easiest way is to getting a bill of quantity and the summary sheet of the bill of quantity. So on here, you could actually see all the summary costs of each and everything, the prime coat, the double seals, guardrails, gabions, road signs. And you've got a cost for every single one, and we've got the scope of work, etc. on everyone. So on all 9 projects, we actually got these bill of quantity summary sheets. And we didn't go into all. In fact, on 4 or 5 of them, they gave us the whole closeout report, which is like a 40-page document. But we didn't go through all the little micro components. We mainly used these summary sheets to actually build up the exact scope of work. And if we found that some of the items were actually not going to be able to be compared with the in-house projects, we could then take it off. So at the end of the day, the whole thing was we wanted to compare apples with apples. And how did that work, etc., to complete it off. Okay. So these bill of quantities, if we didn't have them, we would never have been able to do it. So as I said earlier on, you can actually get all you can from all the government information sources, but you have to go to the department and get the information. We also looked at aligning the outsource project with what was paid on BAS over the period from 16-17 to 2021, and on BAS, the naming of the project is not 100% aligned with how the department names the projects, and you'll always find phase 1, phase 2, on one road. So it's very, very difficult on BAS to take it. So what we did is we actually then sat down and said, okay, well, we have to actually take the contracted value and those bill of quantity sheets, and that we used that value. We couldn't use the BAS. Where on the in-house projects, we had to use the BAS values. The expenditure alignment, the value that we got from BAS and what we got from the bill of quantities were not 100% aligned. So that was also a little bit of a challenge. And as I said, we rather took what the contracting and the contract management did and said that's the cost of the project, actually compared the two. What you can get on BAS is you can actually sit down and look at the duration of a project. You can see that one was for 2 years, that one was for 2 years there. That one was over a longer period of time. I don't know that coal mine, but it wasn't used there. That there you can see was, and then there was a retention period there. So it's very easy then to sit down and look at the duration and how long it was being done. So the BAS did help a little bit in that respect. What we then did is we put all, and this here's a summary from all those yellow sheets I showed you on those bill of quantity summary sheets. So what we did is we redid it on here, or I should say Tabu had to do all of these. And then what we did is we actually then sat down and said, this we must bring in, that we must take off, etc., so that we could actually compare apples with apples. And these are the projects we ended up using in the analysis between the two. So we had one sheet then with the scope of work, all the elements and all the components of the outsource that we could use to compare with the in-house projects. At the end of the day, we could compare the two. We then wanted to benchmark the costs. Now, on TMH 22, there's a section there in Part C about the current replacement cost. Now, the current replacement cost would actually mean you're building the road from scratch. So, in fact, it's not 100% correct, but it gives a good indication of how much would it cost from scratch if we had to build up this component. So on this table C1, we didn't take all the elements of a new road. We just took a proportion that you would use from upgrading from a gravel to a tar. And then we actually sat down and we do. What was interesting about this thing in this COTO document is that they've got the unit cost rates there. And look, there's 4 pages of unit costs. And what they say here is that the values used must be aggregated per component type, which is what we did, and shall be obtained from regional contracts and updated annually in an auditable manner. It is envisaged that the department will update unit rates nationally on an annual basis and use in the valuations. Now, I don't think that's being done. But if they did do that, it would actually solve a lot of problems in the whole country about having unit rates. And then you could actually, on every single tender or every single road construction implementation strategy, you could actually then relate it back to the unit costs. What we did here is we sat down and said, okay, well, let's use that current replacement cost. And what we'll do is we'll use an 8% escalation over the year. We take the components and what they had as the replacement cost, and then we come out with a rate for a 7-meter wide road, and we came out with a rate of about 13.6 million rand per kilometer. And as I say, this is conservative because this is a replacement cost, but we could use that then to benchmark what we got from the outsourced contractors and the in-house construction. So in a summary, we got from the in-house roads, we got the 4 projects, and then we took out this Kanzibe road. As you can see, they're 43 million per kilometer. And the reason for that is if it was a 10 million road, they've only completed 3, but they were still busy with the other 7. So you couldn't actually use the input costs at what we got from BAS because the road was still too young. It wasn't nearing completion. So we actually took that one off as well. And then you can see that the other 3 roads were quite close, 19, 18, 16. And obviously the average then was 18.2 million rand per kilometer. So in summary on the in-house, the TMH22 replacement came out at 13.6. So it is quite a lot higher. And you must remember that when I spoke about the in-house construction cost, we were actually conservative in that in the personnel cost or the staff costs. Okay, and so we gave the best case scenario for the department, which actually could have knocked the numbers up quite a lot higher in any case. Okay. I think the big thing is because the projects took so long to implement, it raises a lot of things on efficiencies. And what type of roads should the department be doing or which ones shouldn't they be? When you look at it, you sort of get the feeling that the department would be really good doing maintenance projects and projects like gravel to tar, but where it's purely gravel to tar, no major cuts and fills and realignments, etc. So that would be a lot more easier, and the department would have the right competency and tools and equipment and plant and equipment to actually do that. Even though they do the work in-house, in summary, all those elements on BAS are outsourced in any case. So it actually cancels the argument about why you're doing it in-house to save time on procurement. It takes that argument out because you still got to procure because a lot of the functions are being done outsourced in any case. Okay. The cost of the plant acquisition, the depreciation, plant maintenance beyond is actually not part of the project. And that wasn't even put into the equation. So that would have actually, as a private contractor, you would have to factor that into your pricing of a bill when you did it. So that would make the cost even higher of the average cost of 18.2. I think the whole in-house funding model just is a spending review by itself. It actually needs, you could actually just take the plant and equipment and do a spending review on that. You could take just the personnel and how they manage the personnel, the competency level. That could be a spending review. The professional services on in-house is also should be a separate spending review. Outsourced ones, these are the projects we ended up coming up with. And if you look at the total cost, including P's and G's of all the roads there, it came to 13.2. In fact, this one here, that is 79 kilometers, which came to 7 million, we excluded that as well. It would have knocked it even a lot lower. In fact, we might have done, but that was just for the value of the work completed. So we excluded that to find sort of projects of very similar nature. That one there had literally no structures. These ones all had sort of similar amount of structures compared to those that were done in-house. When you look at the outsourced project, all of them, they were a bigger magnitude, and they had longer road distances. The number of roads completed in a financial year is more. The average cost per kilometer is very close to that of the capital replacement cost. As I said, we had 9 and we only took 4, and we looked at roads that have very similar scope of work. So in the findings, I think even the department, with what they've got in the financial years, they've they've sort of allocated 54 kilometers to themselves, and then they've outsourced 95.7 average to the outsource. So they're doing about half the work, well, not half, a third of the work in-house, and the outsourcing are the 2/3. As I said earlier on, the road projects are always unique. Benchmarking and getting an average is very, very difficult. The information provided by the department does allow us, just having all those yellow sheets in the bill of quantities, it does allow you to do some assessments. And I think, you know, that the costing, when you have a look at it, is close enough for us to sit down and say, you can actually start looking and getting value into what we've seen there. Okay, the in-house cost was considerably more than the outsourced construction. I think in-house construction takes longer. You know, if you had to even escalate 5 years plus, the model just isn't right. They need to pick right up front the right projects for the department to do them in-house. Even though they say they're doing it in-house, they're still procuring, and they've still got so much elements that they're outsourcing as well. And I think they need to review its resources in line with this, just to make sure that they resource their construction and maintenance units in the right manner to be able to do the work in-house. The in-house plant needs a detailed analysis, because if you look, they're using plant, but then there's on every single one of those projects, there was a line from BAS about rental hiring of plant. So it was almost like a hybrid model. So even though they've got their own plant, they're also hiring plant in. Now, if you know what happens with yellow fleet, there's lots of yellow fleet that just stands, you know, that are in maintenance yards, etc., that are not being worked. So I think that the yellow fleet is a project by itself. And I think the in-house construction section needs just to be resourced in line with the type of work they should be doing or could be doing more effectively. Outsourced projects, it's very easy to say we must outsource everything, but you still need contract and project management, and you need the right people to actually do it. So it does put on the department in any case. The unit's performance, if you look at the annual reports and the annual plans, they're still sort of not performing at 100%. I think, and this one is quite key, all completed roads, there should be a library kept, so that the unit costs and what actual scope of work and that should be kept in place. I think as GTAC, we're starting to get there now where we're starting to ask questions, and like on the IRM, are we capturing all completed roads and all the information that's available? We needs to be a serious look at the model of in-house and outsourcing. You know, why is there not a combination of the two? If you are getting a lot of structures, you know, go out and tender, let them do the structures, and let the department do just the realignment and the regraveling, graveling to tar upgrades, etc. And there needs to be that, as that COTA document said, there needs to be a permanent road unit cost database. Every single province, every single project should be put on. I know the BER, the Bureau for Economic Research in Stellenbosch, something like that, just to keep everything going. And the information should be analyzed on a systematic basis, and every single tender or every single project that gets done should actually be compared back to that. I think as acknowledgements, I think generally we met what we wanted to do. I think it would never have been possible without the Provincial Treasury people and their contacts with the Department of Transport, and what we managed it through the time, because it's not very easy sort of getting into the nitty-gritties of all the departments and how they function. So we must acknowledge their contributions to the project, and we must say thank you to them for that as well. And Department of Transport, Clive and Vuya, they were very, very helpful. So you know, we have to thank them. And I think if you want to do this, you have to have that healthy relationship on the way forward. I'm going to, Tabu, let you make comments, but it would be lovely for you to give some comments on this slide, and then we can open it up for discussions.
Thank you, Jamie. I think you've actually covered almost everything. Probably for us, it's just a matter of just echoing to what you just said. Basically, the whole study, colleagues, it basically gives us a bit of a provision as that serves some sort of a springboard or a bringing ground wherein we can have a future studies similar to this as well. As Jamie has already actually alluded on, colleagues, that we were actually conducting in a smaller source of data that can be able to analyze. If you can actually look at it in a form of your research point of view, you would actually have some sort of descriptive and inferential statistics approaches, of course, with the shorter times, which actually talks to your cross-sectional kind of research, of course, because of the duration that we actually had. At the same time, we had a bit of limited information, but of course, Jamie has already acknowledged the information that we managed to get or glean from the side of the department. And also the issue of the turnaround time in terms of getting the information also was a bit of a challenge, because of it actually exerted more pressure in terms of the output that we actually require to do on the project or in the study. And I also believe that for the future studies that we can actually have, although we can actually see that there's basically preponderance in terms of the models, that is between your in-house as well as your outsourced. But for more time, for more information, we can actually do better. We can actually come up with closer findings or closer or accurate recommendation and findings out of. As Jamie has already said, even if we can actually group the items accordingly, in terms of just, if you can just talk about plant, for an example, you would actually need more time to eat. It's a full study on its own. But at the same token, we had actually probably to augment the departments when we're actually looking for, say, the second bite to the project. That is the collaboration and integration in assuring that they actually buy to the idea or to the study, wherein they can be aware of what is going to be asked out of them and what information that would actually be of importance during the study. But otherwise, well, with that little said, colleagues, I think it's high time that we also acknowledge the job and the work that has been done by the team, as well as Jamie. I can never actually thank him enough of the guidance and the support that we actually got from the project. Of course, with the colleagues as well. We've got Uma Andy here. She's been a mainstay in terms of assuring that we actually get the result that we're looking for at the end of the day. With those few words, I thank everyone. I thank for the opportunity, as well as the time that we've managed to actually spend with regards to the information that is coming from the department to actually better understand what colleagues are going through on the side, on the section of the departments, or on the sectional part of the department, that is the sector department, that is DOT. So with those few words, I thank you, colleagues. Thanks a lot.
Renee, you're on mute.
Hello?
By now we should know. Thank you very much, Tom. Thank you.
Yes, that was on. Thank you very much. Thank you. All right. Sure.
Jamie, this is how you work. You always work collaboratively and supportively. If we can move on to people asking questions around this, Jamie, we're at the end of the presentation. I guess the next slide says questions, doesn't it? So that we can start saying, this was a tough job to do. I mean, in the beginning, we thought, we don't know if we're going to actually, the third time around, understand enough. And it's sort of, I'm struck as I'm listening to you again this afternoon by the fact that in government, we are data rich, but information poor. You know, there's so much information sloshing around, you know, or data sloshing around. It's difficult to extract the core essential parts out of it. But I think we've cracked something here. And I loved hearing it, although shocking as it is, that we have this massive difference, a 5 million rand per kilometer differential between in-house and outsourced. But this is the type of things that treasuries need to know. This is the type of information that they now need to go back with and ask questions to their sector departments. Let me see, questions from your side. I think there was something in the question. Across the country, we're looking at it across the country, and we're busy with that larger study. The length of the periods is definitely part of the cost drivers. Perhaps, Jamie, you can comment that certainly the length of period of doing a project is part of what ups the costs. Apart from your rental hiring, it's also the setup on the site services and so on and so on. I mean, those are very deep engineering aspects which needs to be understood. But perhaps you can talk a little bit about why does it take so long, Jamie, for the in-house projects in your view?
Yeah, I think, you know, when you're doing it outsourced, there's a contract and there's P's and G's, and it costs the contractor the longer the period of time. And then you've got variation orders, etc., etc., etc. So there's and the contractors lose a lot of money if they don't complete a project on time. When you're doing it in-house, there's not a driver to say you have to do it by that date and you should be finished by that date. And if the fuel doesn't arrive this week, we'll do it next week. And if a plant breaks, you know, that piece of machinery will stand, they'll send a low bed, they'll come and collect it, take it, and then they'll wait for a replacement, or they've got to get it. So all of these things add time. Also, the longer period of time you have, you also go through different seasons each year. And one of the biggest cost drivers on a road is when you have a rainy season. In many cases, you have to repeat what you've done. So like an outsourced project, they actually time a lot of the activities with the rainy season and say, if we don't do this, we're not going to finish on time, etc. But on the in-house, it'll just carry on and carry on and carry on and carry on. So I think those factors will always build up to how you go. In fact, why this cost model, I explained the personnel cost. So if you've got a team of 20 people working on that project, and we found that there wasn't a lot of performance on the project, we prorated that 20 team. But that 20 team actually will be there for the whole duration. So we actually gave them the benefit of doubt. The other place we gave them a benefit of doubt in this cost thing was if a project takes 5 years, we should have taken the first year and actually done some escalation costs. So the project cost at the end of the day is also probably 10 or 20% more just because of the duration of the time. And we actually didn't even do that. So I think there's so many different factors that come in. That's why I said if we looked at it properly, if they selected the right roads and there wasn't major cut to fills and major realignments, etc., they could probably do it on a very, very competitive basis, doing it in-house versus outsourced. And then I think the whole secret comes down to that. Choose the right roads for doing in-house, and then you'll probably have a comparative model that you could work on and way forward.
It would certainly be interesting to see what the patterns are showing us around the rest of the country. Jamie, do you want to just fill in the people in the room around the project that you are currently busy with? Just talk a little bit about that. What are your aim and how far are the data? I mean, I'm not familiar with how far you are on the current project. Please go ahead, and then there's Mbali.
Yeah. Okay. On the other road infrastructure, taking the lessons learned from the Eastern Cape, what we've done is we've now got to grips of all the public information sources that are available. We've got the IRM, we've got the BAS, we've got the Provincial. And so what we can do is look at all the input costs from the public purse into all the road infrastructure that's been done around the country. What we've done is we've also sent a notification to all the departments to say, on the one slide I said it'd be nice to have an inventory of all the completed projects. So what we're asking for is if we can get some information of every project that's been completed over the last 6 years or sort of nearing completion and what their scope of work is, we can at a high level actually start doing some comparative costing around how much is it actually costing on the input side and what are we getting as a delivery on the output side in terms of completed projects as we go. It's very, very ambitious. Our time frame is very low, but I think very short. But what I think it will do is indicate a lot of the components that could lead to more. If we look at a thing with a microscope, we could actually identify 5 or 6 different topics or components that actually should be investigated to a lot more level. So that's what we're trying on a level. So it's not just gravel to tar, it's every single project, maintenance or construction, that has been completed over the last 5 or 6 years.
This will be so exciting. I mean, I'm a data nerd, but this is deeply exciting to me. We've broken through this like barrier of understanding these projects, and hopefully it might even be that the road infrastructure projects will help us understand some of the other infrastructure hold-ups and backlogs that we've got. But I see Mbali's hand is up. Mbali, please go ahead.
Yes, I
also
also just wanted to touch. Yeah, I'm on my phone, unfortunately.
Okay.
I just to touch or jump on the wagon of the expansion of this project to other provinces. I just want to hear from Jamie that you spoke about the many variables or variations to consider. And then now that you are expanding it to other provinces, how easily comparable is this type of work to what is happening in other provinces? What are some of the variables that you will be using to make sure that you're comparing apples with apples, as you've mentioned earlier? And then secondly, I know we speak a lot about monitoring and the issue of monitoring systems across all the sectors in government or many sectors in government. And in your study with the road infrastructure, how well monitored are these road infrastructure projects? So were you able to tell how many were put on hold, for example, which is an efficiency issue, or maybe issues that were beyond their control, or maybe how many of these projects went beyond the planned time to complete, or how many went above budget, etc.? Thanks.
Jamie, please go ahead.
Should I respond? Okay. With all the variables and the apples, we try to minimize it in the Eastern Cape by getting those, well, we got the spreadsheet of the scope of works and everything, and we had quite a lengthy telecon with the department. So we got a good feeling around the in-house projects, and on the outsourced, by just having the closeout reports and those bill of quantities, we could actually then sort of minimize the risk of not comparing apples with apples. When we're looking at the whole country, we're not going to get that level of detail. So what we can do is at a high level, sort of do some cost comparison. So the outliers should balance out, the high outliers should balance with the low outliers. So it's very dangerous. It can be fraught with a lot of misinterpretation, but we're not getting down to the sort of the minor detail that you should do if you want to compare apples with apples. So for us, I don't think we want to compare when we do the whole country. We don't want to compare Eastern Cape with Western Cape, not at all. But what we can do is sit down and say, in the fiscus, we're spending 4 billion rand on maintenance. We're finding that we're completing 50 projects around the country. The average cost of those 50 projects is X. We can compare that at a high level with some benchmark costs or norms and standards. So we can do that sort of exercise. But we would have to get project by project information if we wanted to do that. The monitoring of the projects, it's very easy to see that on the outsourced projects, because even on BAS, you can actually see the duration of the project. And there is always rule of thumb, looking at the scope of work, if you're doing a 20-kilometer road, it shouldn't take 5 years. You'd probably could finish most of it in 1 year, roll over to the next financial year, and that you can pick up from BAS. We can't pick up whether there was proper monitoring by the department on those roads. Obviously, at the high level we're doing, But if we did get all the closeout reports and we had a repository of all of them, it would be really great. Then you could actually do to the level of detail that you want. But as I say, on the one we're doing at a national level, we just haven't got time, and we won't have access to all that data in any case.
Yes, no, I hear that. I see more hands in the audience. I'm gonna ask Vivek and then Sibongile, please. Not sure the sequence, but please go for it, Vivek.
Thanks, Renette. Hi, Jamie. It's Vivek. Jamie, the work you've done, I mean, you've used data that happened after the project was done, which is absolutely fine. What I'm on about is, I mean, before the project goes out on tender, any idea how firm those costs are? And what sort of analysis does department do to get a firm handle on the cost, on the initial cost of the project? Thanks.
I think, Jamie, why don't you just go and answer that one before we even ask Sibongile to give her a space. Vivek, obviously you are coming from the space of project type of work that you do, but Jamie, just start talking around this, and I will come in with a comment at the end as well. So,
Vivek, that's a very good question. You know, if you were doing, if you were building your house at home, you would sit down and say, I want to build this house. That's sort of my understanding. I think it'll come to about 10,000 Rand a square meter. When you go out and get quotes, you always will benchmark it back to what you think costs about 10,000 Rand a square meter. And if it came to 15,000, you would then sit down and say, oh, I'm getting high costs to build my house, whatever. Our government doesn't seem to do that. You know, whether it's education, health, whatever. So I'm not too sure transport doesn't. As I said, there's too many variables, so they probably don't sort of bring that into the equation when they're doing the work up front. I think it's a big gap in government that they should have some sort of feeling around what the actual cost should be. I remember when I was in health, I sat down and said, well, the CHC, that design, it's a standard design. We knew we could do that thing for 32 million. If we got 40 million or 50 million, we always sat down and questioned why, you know, in the tender documents. Now, roads should be exactly the same. You know, you should have unit costs. You could do that. You could use that TMH Koto to bring back the unit costs and then benchmark it. Look, I'm an older engineer. In the old days, whenever you got a cost, the QS, you know, whether you're doing a building, gave you an estimate. If it wasn't within the 10% percentile of that cost, you actually disqualified the tender. So I think your question is really, really relevant, and I think it's something in the procurement world that we're in that should be brought back very, very strongly. So I don't think I don't know if I'll answer, but I do agree with you. It has to happen.
Okay, and I just want to say right at the end is that surely these types of studies lying on the knowledge hubs of various, you know, it's given to the provincial treasury. It's available for anybody to pull down from the GTAC and PEPA websites. This can inform people. This can now be going forward a base of information on which to build. Given all the variations, you understand that there would be a little bit of differences, but here is a key building block in our way, in our processes of controlling costs, and it's important because it's based on real expenditure. It's a study that stands solidly, and it's there for people to use. So by all means, you know, we'll send round the Knowledge Hub links for everybody after this. Let me give, I think it was Sibongile. Let me give Sibongile a chance.
Thank you, Ronette. Thank you, Jamie, for the presentation. It's good to see you again. Yeah, I'm not sure if I've missed the part that indicates the specific period of the review covered. But my question relates to, I remember as GTAC, we actually assisted the province in 2016-17 with the function, with the roads, a function shift from the Department of Roads and Public Works, as it was known as such before, to move the function to Department of Transport. So I'm just wondering whether this has had any impact on the exercise. I mean, given also questions that Mbali raised in terms of monitoring these projects. And I mean, we know that the exercise relies mainly on the quality of data that is collected. I think maybe the colleagues from the Department of Transport would remember this project. Thank you.
I have no answer. I mean, Jamie, did you come across
Yeah,
this?
yes. No, look, the period we took was from 16-17 to 2021, I think it was. Sibangilis, and on the BAS, actually the receiving department, which would be either roads and public works, or it's actually shown there. So when we do the data cleaning, we actually combine the two together, so that what was done under roads and transport and public works and roads and the Department of Transport, they were actually put together. So and then the projects, we got the cost, whether if it was transferred between the two departments, we would have picked it up, and we did that in the data cleansing process.
Now there you are. I think, are there any more questions? I don't see any hands being raised. And then I think we're sort of doing well for time. It's now 3 o'clock. And I think this is precisely what we want. We want a short and sweet discussion. Here is a case study. We show what we did. Jamie had a breakthrough here. We're using this to do further work, to further understand both roads infrastructure, but I suspect general social infrastructure as well. And happy to share any more details with anybody that wants more information. Please write to us, contact us, have a look at the Knowledge Hub. The full and detailed studies are available. And for the colleagues in the provinces, I think this is really quite central to the type of understanding that you're looking for. So happy to be of assistance. And thank you very much, Jamie and team here. Thank you, Tabu. And then, of course, thank you very much to the Eastern Cape Provincial Treasury that allowed us to be able to do this study. Really, really enjoy that. Thank you very much, colleagues. We are also continuing with our normal Fundanati moment at 3:30. Today, Dr. Bahrain will be showing us some sort of basic Excel skills that we need in the workplace. So please join us for those of you that want to improve your knowledge around Excel. A short moment there with her on improving us. Thank you, Jamie. Thank you very much, everybody in the room. Hope to see you next Friday again. Speak to you soon. Bye-bye.
Right.